Real ones sleep. Okay. I mean, just saying, real ones sleep with a bottle of water next to them.
Is
I
that
live,
your,
like,
like
dangerously, and I have a cup of water on my headboard.
I
Uncovered?
too
What
I too have an uncovered cup of water. It sits on top of my mega
You
fan that's right next
psychos.
to my bed.
You actual
about
That once,
psychos. How can you?
and
I'm
then
s- I'm scared.
I did that once, and then I went to drink it, and there was a spider floating in it, and it brushed against my face, and I'm scarred for life. So now I'm a water bottle only kind of girl.
You know, that's fair and valid, but I'm still gonna laugh, I'm sorry.
Nightmare
This is
Horrifying.
scenario.
how 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 dare you? How
I
how
I used to
dare
have
you?
really bad arachnophobia, but I don't know. I've since overcome it.
I love that you're just like skill issue. Get it together, girl.
Yeah, no, I was just mowing the lawn one day, came around the corner to the back of the house, and yeah, just the way the sun hit the light there was this like spider web in the bushes, and just like little morning dew was kind of catching it, and I was like, huh, it's kind of pretty. And after that, like the fear of spiders was just broken. And like it was bad arachnophobia too. Like I would like if one got on me and I hadn't noticed it, I'd like start like shrieking.
You know,
Mhm.
it is very traumatic thing for a lot of people.
It sure is. All right, it's been 3 minutes. And you guys have had so much warning, so we're gonna get started. Unless anyone else has any great anecdotes they need to share with the class.
I'm gonna get a water. I'll be right back. I'm just
No,
kidding.
you son of a bitch.
Low key, that's actually such a smart idea.
All
Cold
right.
water and noodles?
Let me put
Ban
on
this
my
guy.
fucking glasses and let's get
Dude, at least cook your fucking ramen, please.
Like, take the iced tea approach, do it hot, and then chill it if you're going to do that.
What?
Cold ramen.
what?
Did you just say hot iced tea?
No, that's not what I said.
Fanny, no.
I drink some
You
hot iced tea.
I'm s-
Get the fuck
I'm
out.
saying
I live in the south.
if they insist on doing cold water with the ramen noodles, I'm saying take the iced tea approach where you make the tea with like hot water and then chill it afterwards.
yeah, that's how iced tea works.
Well, why would you? Okay, you know
I
what?
don't
You know
know,
what? You
but
know what? You know what? This train of thought, none of my business. Um, so let's get started. Hello everybody. Welcome to our first preseason meeting. Friendly reminder to try and keep kind of like spam and gifts to a minimum in the chat so we don't lose any questions.
Mhm.
Um, so this will be fairly quick. We're really just setting the groundwork for the season. We're going to go over the let's go to the next page in our fun little presentation. Um, so we'll be going over the main story pitch, how factions, humans, and our lore will work for the season, and then we'll also be giving some general updates from the various teams. We will take and answer questions at the very end, so please, pin your questions until then. This is our first meeting of the day, so we're gonna try and limit questions to 30 minutes, just so we're not here for like 5 hours and have to go on to the next meeting. So just keep that in mind. We do have a lot of prep work to do still, particularly when it comes to lore, and we are still waiting on a few of our favorite mods to stabilize, but rest assured that we are working as quickly as possible to get this off the ground and running. So we're going to start off with roleplay overview. I am one of the members of that team, and I'll be providing you with a peek of what we've been cooking. So, um, as of now, this is going to be a 2-season arc, which means that we'll be doing a lore wipe after season 2, but seasons 1 and 2 will be continuous lore. Delving into story stuff, right off the jump, I want to let you know that we're planning on doing lighter admin story this time around. There are going to be a lot of pop-ups and some reoccurring NPCs thanks to our dedicated and wonderful coordination team. But NPCs will not be quite to this scale as last season. We wanted to make sure that we gave room for factions and their arcs, as well as personal stories. The admin story will be a constant, persistent element of the background and the world. Our goal is to make this season feel as alive and interactable as possible. To that end, because the main story element of the story is largely like solving a mystery, I won't be delving too deeply into our plans so that you have the opportunity to unravel that mystery in character as the season unfolds. So, this is your elevator pitch. There is something wrong with the magic. No matter where you are from, no matter who or what you are, you have noticed the magic changing. For the last century, maybe more, it's been changing for the worse. So much so that you have been forced to leave your homes behind and try and find somewhere new to live. How exactly the magic is wrong will be largely up to you. You could be from a place where the magic is gone. It simply doesn't exist anymore. Maybe sigil magics are too weak to maintain themselves. Maybe you're a human mage who has lost the ability to cast. We want to make it so that your factions and your characters are feeling the effects of this magical change in almost any way you can think of. Be creative. Magic is shifting, dying, growing out of control. It's being weird and fussy, and nobody knows why. What flavor of weird it is pre-season start is largely up to you. You and your faction have come to the land of Dracula for refuge. Vardaran is land long abandoned. After Dracula fell, it became a place that was largely inhospitable between Mordium and Luminance. Nobody wanted to settle here. But now, you don't have any other choice. Vardaran and Vardaran alone seems to be free of the plight of this shifting magic. It will be up to you to determine the fate of your factions and yourself as you try to carve out a new home on Vardaran soil. While you're there, maybe you'll unravel the mystery of what's all wrong with the magic, too. We are requiring that factions have come most recently from somewhere outside of Vardaran. Of course, your character could have been born in Vardaran, moved to Frankelberg, joined the faction, and is now moving home in the face of the mystery disaster that your faction is facing. Factions will be selected from player submissions. We hope to have 3 or 4 unique factions for Season 1. I will be pinging you all with an announcement with some forms in it sometime after the second meeting, just in case anything comes up in the question section of either meeting that we want to add to the questionnaire. That said, please don't get too attached to any one idea until we announce our official factions for Season 1. It would be amazing if we could use everyone's submissions, but unfortunately, unless only 3 people decide to submit anything, that probably won't be the case. We're going to choose the factions very carefully and as a team. We may play dolls and merge 2 or 3 ideas into one faction if we need to. So if you have an idea that's kind of like half formed, feel free to submit it because we may be like, oh, this would great and it would work with Joe's idea. Let's see if the 2 of them want to work together. We're looking for factions that are broad enough pitches to include a lot of like-minded players. If your proposed faction is like one family and only their bloodline and won't include anyone else, or something that's similarly exclusionary, it's unlikely that your idea will be selected. We're wanting to avoid factions that don't allow for individual creativity within them. We're aiming for both broad and inclusive factions while also giving those factions a unique identity. We want them all to feel like they're their own thing. It is a balancing act, so please be patient with us while we work through the submissions. We want to have at least 3 solid factions that will draw a lot of interest. Faction leaders will likely be whoever pitches the faction, but they don't have to be. If you have a great idea for a faction but don't want your character to be the president of the club, you can submit something and then we can find a volunteer from within the faction for Vampire Email Hell season. We're looking to fill different niches with different factions and are hopeful that we can create some really cool places for you to call home. Once we've got the factions decided, we will work with faction leaders to get their elevator pitches ready for the community at large. We'll have more information about faction leadership and how you'll be working with admins to write your faction plot soon. Each faction will be given their own sigil recruitment channel, an idea thread, and a general channel for spoiler-ridden chatter. So you guys can talk about your plots and how you want to break up your sigils without, piling on people that are in other factions or without seeing each other's spoilers. Faction applications, as I said, will open sometime after the second meeting and be open for 2 weeks. Submissions will close on the 24th of May at 11 p.m. PST. We won't be accepting anything after that, so make sure you get your submissions in. We're allowing only 1 submission per player, but you've got 2 weeks to cook, so do with that time what you'd like. With that said, I am now going to pass the microphone off to Hart, who is going to talk about our new lore process and our human contract.
Hello. So first, I would like to discuss the other submissions option that we will be opening up soon to the community, and that is our lore submission process. So this will be our first season that is wholly and entirely Shadows of Barbarin. And we felt it would be best to celebrate that by opening up the creation of our lore to the community who makes all this possible, which is you. So, to help provide some guidelines for our magic and power levels, we are looking to begin with low to medium magic for the season. This is both to ensure that we have a new avenue of RP to explore after the high magic of season 0, as well as ensuring that we have room to grow throughout both the season and the arc. Please keep this magic level in mind as you write your submissions, as anything that extends too far beyond the bounds of low to medium magic may need to be workshopped or go unused. Additionally, we do have some rules about our submissions process. For one, we are going to be capping of the number of submissions at 3 big ideas per person. These submissions can be anything lore related, so it can be kingdoms, regions, subspecies of vampires, really anything that could be added to a big lore doc for other people to adopt and use for themselves is welcome. The limit is to ensure that we aren't overwhelmed with suggestions and can work through the submissions sent our way in a timely fashion. If we need more, we'll let you know. Next, I want to highlight that these do not need to be wholly original ideas, not, well, sorry, I misspoke there very badly. These do need to be wholly original ideas, not utilized as official or common lore in season 0 or in prior seasons within our community. We want to ensure that this feels like the fresh start that it is, and as such, we'll only be using lore that isn't treading the same or very similar ground as we've tread before. Another rule surrounding our submissions is that the purpose of these submissions is to create lore for the entire community, to ensure that everyone is on the same playing field, even those who do not submit lore or who may join us after the submissions period is over. We will be pretty firm that no characters played by someone submitting lore can be people in positions of power from the locale that they have submitted to us. Your characters can be from the area, but they can't be important historical figures, rulers, or otherwise integral pieces of the lore that is created for community use. Finally, we will be requesting that folks submitting lore indicate that they are okay with us using and modifying the lore to ensure cohesion, as well as indicating that they are clearly giving us Shadows of Ardorin permission to use the lore for the purposes of running the game. In some ways, it can be thought of as a lore donation, and once the lore is donated, we will be able to make changes, adjust, and use the lore as necessary for the arc and the benefit of the community as a whole. For this reason, I would caution people against submitting anything like lore related that is incredibly personal to them that they would not want to see changed in any way. A good way that I can kind of explain the process that we're going for is that we're inviting everyone to throw some spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. And what we have at the end will be community property through and through. So lore submissions will be opened up likely after the second meeting as well. And they will close on the 24th of May at 11 p.m. PST. So same as the faction submissions. So next up, I would like to discuss something that we had teased very recently. And that's with season 1 of Shadows of Arden, we will be including humans as a playable species. Since we began establishing this community, there was a lot of excitement around the idea of opening up playable characters beyond the default of a vampire. With this season, we will be testing the waters of that by allowing humans and enabling them to be both fun to play and true to the ideas of being substantially different from vampires with the introduction of a new mechanic, a mortality contract. The mortality contract, and thus playable humans, will be available to members of our community who have had at least 4 to 6 weeks of active play under the belt, as we are still in some ways in the testing process of this concept. So the main features of the mortality contract are as follows. Humans will be eligible to receive buffs such as sun immunity and no blood drain that will enable a play experience that allows you to, walk in the sun, be a human, do all that good stuff. They will have a set blood type and percentage that is detailed in their whitelist and aren't really allowed to consume blood to change their blood type beyond that. Humans will have one life, and if they lose that life, they are obligated to follow our death or undeath guidelines. But I know one life kind of sounds harsh, so let me explain that a little bit more before we move to death or undeath. So, with the one life mechanic, if a human is reduced to their bag, they are at risk of losing their one life. How they can prevent the loss of that life after being reduced to their bag is if they receive medical RP before their bag disappears. This medical RP needs to be documented and presented to the team in a ticket so that we know that they were saved from losing their life and are able to reapply buffs. However, humans are still fragile, so they are only able to be reduced to their bag and receive medical RP twice without losing their life. So, on the third time a human's reduced to their bag, even if they receive med RP, they will lose their life. That is where our death or undeath procedure comes into play. If a human character loses their life, they have a choice. They can either perma, the death route, or they can become a vampire, the undeath route. So, becoming a vampire would be through whatever both makes the most sense and has the consent of all parties. So, for example, a character can be turned by the vampire that tore their throat, or by a vampire that was attempting medical RP on the third bag drop, or even in situations where there was no one around in a PvE death, there is a way we can maybe work with another player where they found you dying and turned you. Then you can work with that. There is also a final option for becoming a vampire, a risen vampire with no direct sire. If for some reason there's no option that either makes sense to you or has the agreement of all parties, then becoming a risen vampire will. Oh, I'm sorry, just one moment. Sorry about that. So a risen vampire with no direct sire. If for some reason there's no option that either makes sense for you or has the agreement of other parties, then becoming a risen vampire will allow you to take the undeath route still. Additionally, the specifics of how risen vampires have come to be will, in some ways, be unique and plot relevant. So, although I can't provide additional details just yet, just know that it would be a fun option should you choose to take it. So players will have 3 days to make a final decision on which path they want to take on their contract to ensure folks are happy with their choice, to allow for emotions to cool after intense potential character deaths, and for OOC communication with potential sires or admins in the case of a risen vampire. Uh, Turning people into a vampire, that's something that always needs consent from both sides. So there's no way that you can like say, be like, I want to turn Joe into a vampire. And Joe always has the option to not do that. And likewise, if Joe tears your character's throat, you can't say, I want Joe to be my sire. Um, Joe would need to agree to that. So that's why we have kind of the 3 days to kind of figure all that out, figure out what you want to do, as well as the option of the risen vampire that is both plot relevant and optional for, if there isn't something else that makes sense. So we will be releasing more details about some of the specifics of what is and isn't allowed for human characters in a big fancy list later. But the mortality contract, in many ways, is kind of the big ticket item that I wanted to explain to you today. So, with that said, I will go ahead and pass the mic over to Fenwick.
Hello, my lovelies. So, let's talk about event volunteers. You know them, you love them. These are our wonderful EVs that act as the first line of manpower behind our ability to deepen immersion in the stories we tell. EVs act as our actors that fill out the stories of the server, both player generated stories and admin generated stories. These are the butlers, the soldiers, the princes, the merchants, the mysterious old man in the cave with a quest to give you, Whatever the story requires, we outfit and alter the EV appropriately, including changing the nameplate. These are thanks to the mods at our disposal, and we try and give the EVs first crack at uh, being there to fill out the roles that we need to deepen the immersion of our stories that we're telling. For our season 1, we will be resetting all of the EV roles. Everyone who's currently in EV, mods exempt, will be able to reapply. And this is just to ensure everyone is dedicated, ready, and has the spoons to prepare. As an EV, you will be given the equipment, the buffs, whatever is required of the story, given the outline, the drill, and from there we can have you act out the role. So this is just so that we can have a little bit more engaging NPCs. You can have your we can't have a Silverlight rifleman go, "What was that sound?" as rats scurry through the bushes as our players are trying to sneak into a lab of some kind, as an example. So once we are concluded with this meeting, EV applications will be open and available. And we hope that you are ready to take that next step. And that's all. Passing it on.
Now it is my turn to speak. So, as the second part of the coordination section, I won't talk about event volunteers, but about the events themselves. So we had a discussion as part of coordination, always does, and we decided to change some things up to make it just more tenable for us as well. First thing on the roster was the admin assisted events. We decided that it would be more tenable to have every player allow, well, every player gets one admin assisted event. They're only allowed a maximum of 2 donated tickets. So we all know it was possible to donate admin assisted events. If you weren't using them, you could just give them to a friend. And there was no set cap, so you could technically like collect up to 20 admin assisted events for a big old plot. That's fine and all, but it wasn't really tenable for us, so we decided that we would allow players up to a maximum of 3 admin assisted events, with 2 of them being donated. We decided as well to not specifically enforce, but just feel around as for how many members or players you should involve in your event. If it's an open world event, there's no minimum of players we will enforce. Go ham, enjoy the RP. But if it's a private event and you're gonna lock in a castle, no one's allowed in, we're gonna not really have a specific number set, but if it's only gonna be like 3 people, we'll go, does this need admin assistance? Can you do this without? Just to kind of feel around, see what's going on. As for the new tickets, events are gonna get a bit more requirements to be submitted. There was a trend last season where we had people submit an event that they weren't really sure about or didn't have a lot of details of. And by the time the event came around, both the event volunteers and staff were kind of left looking at their hands with like, okay, but what do we do now when someone asks us a very specific question we don't have an answer to in character because we don't know the deets? Essentially, it can be just boiled down to the NPC we're playing isn't really full-fleshed. We don't know what we're doing aside from giving one quest. So there will be a new template. It includes how many people do you expect for your event, so we can balance things around for both PvE and PvP. What's the outcome of the event? What knowledge do the NPCs have? Do we know who your character is? What do we know of Ardoran? That type of stuff. Just it's very small things. We'll ask for an event description summary that's like around 500 characters, so event volunteers can kind of skim through without having to read the whole discourse in a ticket to understand that it's not a role they'd be specifically interested in or one they can even play. We'll ask for the in-game demeanor, the armor, spell layout, what is the character like, just that sort of stuff that overall improves quality of life for event volunteers and coordination staff. As for the rest, there's some new stuff. It's gonna be it's gonna be kind of exciting. I don't want to spoil it though, because it'll be a show basically. but coordination has some stuff cooking. That's all I can really say. I'll move on. Microphone to the next person.
Alrighty, does someone from player support want to go over player support stuff?
Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea to move on to the disciplinary changes.
I'll take it. I'll take it. I thought someone else wanted to do the section, but it's fine. Uh, disciplinary. Couple of things. Very important. We don't want one-to-ones with other universes anymore. It's kind of become an issue. It's fine to use inspiration, but ripping a concept of a different universe, book, writer, etc., is not really something we want to condone any longer. This isn't to say that people who did are in trouble or anything like that. It's just we would kind of like to see more unique things in our space. It's fine if you can't come up with something on the spot that's really fucking hard to explain and complicated and has ethical lore and a lot of story. It's fine. You can play you, but it's unfair to expect someone in a character to know what you mean when you mention a name that technically only exists in another game or in another book or multiverse. It's just not really fair to expect players to do that. So that's why we're putting that rule in place. The other thing really is just please put in tickets whenever you feel something is wrong or uncomfortable or it's fucked. Just feel free to tell us. Tickets are open at all times. Well, maybe not now because they're still in the works, but they'll be open at all time. And info about the feedback forum. We'll be doing a lot of stuff with the feedback forum. I don't know. Tony, do you have anything to add to that? Because I'm not really familiar at all with it yet.
The only other thing that we wanted to touch on with disciplinary is just a gentle reminder that if you are currently a part of or a third party to an ongoing disciplinary issue, that you leave all discussions of that issues to tickets with us. Part of what we take very seriously on disciplinary is making sure that we're getting everyone's side. We want to hear from everyone that's involved in any issues. And if people, sort of speak publicly on things and jump the gun, then we may, it can affect that process. If you have questions about like where we're at with a ticket, like if you report somebody for something and you don't see us doing anything and you're getting concerned that we're not going to do anything, you can always open another ticket with us to check where we're at. Because most likely, if we haven't followed up with you, we're still just taking part in our due process. Said.
Nope,
Uh,
it's showing. All good.
yeah.
Yay! All right, let's move on to our Q&A section. We are, like I said, going to try and limit questions to 30 minutes, so we'll be ending at pretty much the hour, just because a lot of us, we got to go eat food and take care of our families and stuff before the second meeting. We are asking that you like prioritize your questions, and if we bring you on stage, you ask one question, and then we're going to put you back down in the audience so that other folks have time to speak. So we're not just, asking not just it's just one guy asking 20 questions. So that being said, does someone like to come up and ask a question?
I got it.
Yo, it's Laura. Yo.
Hi, Dora.
Silence node. So, question. Are we going to be forced into factions like old season 6?
So we are. Yes. So for now, the tentative plan, and this may shift depending on like how faction stories actually are structured once we've decided on factions. What we're saying now is that for the first 2 weeks, you have to be a part of a faction. If you want to defect after that, you're welcome to. If you really, really, really don't want to be a part of a faction, you can join after week 2. But that said, I'm encouraging everyone, please at least give it a shot. Because admin story will be lighter and most of the main plots are going to be the 3 or 4 faction plots. You may be missing out on a good chunk of RP if you don't join a faction, just because depending on what the factions are like, they're not all of their events may be, readily available to the server at large. So for that reason, at least give it a shot. And if you hate it after 2 weeks, your character can be like, fuck you guys, and defect. But at least at the top right now, we are likely going to require everyone to whitelist with a faction and start inside of one.
Understood.
And I wanted to answer Leofric's question. Ba 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 ba. And is this implying that factions are optional involvement? You can defect after 2 weeks. But for now, please try. Just because, like, back in season 6, there was a bunch of people that were like, I don't want to join a faction. And then by the time faction defection, like, rolled around, there were only, like, 3 or 4 people that left because people liked them. So please just give it a shot. And if you hate it, you can defect. Or you can join late if you really, really don't want to. But, you know, And that is something also that'll be in the feedback forms. If you're aggressively against factions, you're never gonna want put that in there. Because if it's a large chunk of the server, we may change our minds. We will be trying to limit factions so they're the same size. So also keep that in mind. So if we, we'll see.
Long to clarify, if one faction is getting wildly ahead of the other two, we're going to start putting like soft caps, essentially.
And then Morgan asked, for those looking to start as a human, how does that work in being with factions with vampires? If we have a shit ton of people that are interested in being humans, that'll also be a part of the feedback form is, are you planning to play a human next season? There might just be a faction that's all humans. And then if not, we're just going to be looking for factions that can have humans slotted in. Or if only like 3 people want to play humans, we may make it so those people just are their own little club. But it really just depends on how those numbers shake out. Because if half of the server is humans, they can just go be a faction. If only 2 people are gonna be humans, they can be the exception to that rule and go be cool kids club in the mountains.
Do we want to grab the next speaker who had their hand up?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on. They just put their hand down. Oh no, never mind. They're up here.
I'm here. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. So the question I have is in regards to a common theme listening to the meeting and things that have been going on is there's really this strong desire for new, for original, and kind of leaving the homages and a lot of Easter eggs to the past just kind of sitting there. How much enforcement will there be on things like player character names? I know there's some people that, and I'm one of them. I get very attached to a certain name, so I want to play version A, version B, version C, and I just I switch out my hat or I switch out my mustache, but I'm still the same name. And I know that's also something that can be kind of difficult for newer for players that have been playing together for a long time to make the distinguishing between the two. Are we going to require that? Hey, if you always use this name, it's time to come up with a new name for this lore.
So we've been talking about that on the back end, and kind of the vibe that we're currently going with is that uh, if you have a character that you're super attached to, that you like to play different versions of that character in different scenarios, that's fine. You can play that character, you can use that name. However, we are going to be looking a lot more at the whitelist to make sure that it is a true reimagining and not bringing forward some of the old lore that is associated with the character from like where they were at in like past usages of the character within the community. We want to make sure that there is a clean like division line, but also allowing people to essentially play the characters that they have that attachment to, as you've described.
Perfect. That's all I have.
To be clear, we are wanting to leave some of the like larger reoccurring lore pieces from VRRP behind. So like we're hoping to get like totally new country names. Like nobody will be from Francia because we're gonna replace Francia with something else. Um, so like stuff like even like the Helgriva. Like if you want to do something that's like spirit, like tribe related, just maybe name it something else. Try to move it in a new direction, make it into something that's like, you know, different. So you can use a lot of like the same like general ideas. Like if you
Motifs.
want to have a country that's France in a hat, we can have a country that's France in a hat. If you want to do something that's like, we want to encourage first and foremost, like let's do whole new concepts. But if you are in love with an idea, it's the only type of RP you want to do, just repackage it enough so that we are, legally distinct, please.
Mm-hmm. And we also have, I wanted to touch on this earlier during the disciplinary thing, like tickets aren't just for questions, they're not just for reporting. they're also there for us to work with you. Like if you have an idea that you're not sure how to bring to light or you don't know what you want to do, open a ticket with us and we can workshop that with you.
All right. Do we want to get the next speaker in here, Dash? Thank you.
Oh, hello.
Welcome.
Um, Hi. This is more of a question for providing lore and stuff like that. I understand that we are staying in a low magic setting, but as far as things being presented for character creation stuff like that for the server and stuff, how far are we straying from things like humans and vampires and such this season?
You can submit lore for anything. You can submit random werewolf lore. You can submit lore for a realm that exists outside of Earth. We are trying to rebuild every corner of the lore. And so the more varied submissions we get, the better. Because if everyone and their mom only submits kingdoms, then the only canon lore we're gonna have going in is probably gonna be kingdoms. So please be creative. Submit lore for whatever the fuck you want. We may take it, we may not. We may play dolls and smush it with somebody else's. Yeah, we want as much creativity and variety as possible. Everyone can only submit 3 ideas because I don't want to read 500 submissions from everyone because then the season will never start. So yeah, submit anything. As long as it's lore, throw it at us.
Alrighty. And I guess as a follow-up to the 3 submissions thing, does it have to be like 3 submissions as in regarding a specific topic or
Yeah, so like let's say you wanted to submit, you have an idea for like a kingdom. You write up like like a page of stuff about this kingdom that you want to be like one of Vardern's neighbors. And then for idea number 2, you want something that's like some unique spin on like the Feywild, some other like Fey inspired realm. And then for your third one, you have an idea for like I don't know how werewolves work in our new setting. So just 3 distinct ideas. You'll have room to like like word vomit in there, so you can write a couple of paragraphs. But yeah, just 3 different lore things.
alrighty, thank you. That was just my question.
And it
All
doesn't
right.
have to be anything super fancy. It could be like, hey, why are there vampire merchants just chilling in Mortium? What's their deal? Like that's a topic that you could cover.
All right, let's get
Like
our
that.
next speaker, I think, because we did quite a few written questions before speakers, and I'd like to get the speakers there where they're not sitting on it too long.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome.
Is it I type it out in the chat? I can talk right now.
Yeah, you're here.
I mean, if you
If
want to type it out, yeah, feel
yeah,
free
if you
to.
need to. Preferably in the meeting chat, so we've got all eyes on it. While that's going on, if there are any text questions that y'all see that you want to speak out an answer to, feel free.
Ooh, I like Miss Andra's question.
I think that is a great question.
Will there be incentive for at least some large PvP events? I think that's very dependent on what factions there's going to be to begin with. But if like a lot of people want to see a lot of PvP incentive, we can figure something out in the background that
We
would
could even
incentivize more PvP.
Yeah, we could even make some events designed around it. Like, a lot of it depends on what the factions and the characters themselves are going to be striving towards. What particular goals that you want to have going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Once we have that type of information, we can, try and tailor some events to accommodate that. Awesome! I can't wait.
Wiggler.
Put it in the chat.
You poor soul. I'm EU as well. So events, since there's going to be probably a lot of faction events, it's entirely dependent on what the player base is. We are mostly an NA server, so unfortunately this does mean you're going to probably miss a big chunk of things. But as for pop-ups, our main aim is trying to hit as many time zones as possible, so not a lot of people are left out. So I can't promise anything there because it's an availability thing. You might miss some things, you might not miss other things. Who knows? I can't tell you anything.
Um,
I can't promise anything that is.
yeah, we do plan to have a lot more things like pop-ups and whatnot more frequently than last season. Not an overwhelming number, but just more than before. So ideally, we can fit in your time zone, but I personally can't guarantee anything until the weekend for like EU time zone and anything outside of like standard central. But on the weekend it's
We,
different. So
we do have both staff and players in many different time zones. If you find a core group of people who share your time zone and you decide to make events that are player driven, like in that time zone, then that's a wonderful way to like have that going on. But unfortunately, like it's a thing where it's impossible to hit every time zone and make it so every time zone is able to attend something just because we do have people all over the world.
all right. I believe we have our next speaker coming up. Thank you, Wiggler, for your question.
Oh god, mobile is so weird for this. What?
Hi.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, how are you? I'm still in bed, if you can't tell. Anyway, question time. What was my question again? Shit.
Oh, do you need a
That's
moment?
just the worst.
I remember now. Is enough about different groups' plans known that you have a general idea in mind for what the factions are going to look like, or is that still up in the air?
So that is going to be largely dependent on what is submitted to us. So a lot of it is still up in the air. We're going to be taking submissions for 2 weeks. And then once we have all the submissions and we're able to kind of work through things with everyone and see who's interested and able to commit to doing faction storyline stuff, then we'll be able to release the specifics of what the factions will be.
All right.
All right. Unless there's a question in the text chat that we'd like to get to now, let's get our next speaker.
How do I leave the stage? Hold up.
Don't worry,
This is how.
we'll kick you
Huzzah.
out. It's okay. Get out of here. Shoot. Take on.
Hit him with the broom.
I'm gonna just keep dragging people up, just FYI.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Yellow.
Uh,
So my a question I had about the human contract and the medical aspect of it. So I know that there is like we don't want to encourage people to mess up other people's stuff just for the sake of messing it up. But if there is a human that you want to make sure they stay dead, and you take action to prevent other people from assisting that person, is that okay, or are we gonna try and stay away from that?
I think some of that would be dependent on like some like I feel like that would be very case by case. Uh However, on its face, there's nothing wrong. If like say, you killed this person and like you want to make sure that no one can help them get up, I think it would be understandable from an RP point to say camp the body. However, if there are people who want to like save that person, then you know prepare for people
Yeah.
to try and gang up on you. So that could be an opportunity for conflict, that sort of thing. The this is something that I admit is something I hadn't quite considered yet. So this is a tentative answer. Whenever we have the full contract sent out, uh, we might address that if it does turn out like, actually, like we want to go a different direction. But tentative answer, that's fine.
Cool.
Before we pull up
So-
somebody else, I did want to respond to Snow's question. Are factions going to force players into regions like the old season 6? Right now, no. We do want to heavily encourage factions to cluster at the beginning of the season. So, like, maybe you're all in like the southern west corner of Farbane. It'll be this sort of thing where right now the tentative plan is to make it you all have to be neighbors for 2 weeks, and then if you want to fuck off and move to the other side of the Vardaran after that, you can do that. But we're not going to force you to stay in like Dunley the whole season, and we're not going to we won't be encouraging factions unless they have a damn good lore reason to like take over a region. So like if sciencey girlies want to still gather in Gloomrot, that's fine. You can do that. But nobody can be like, this is ours, at least at the start. If you want to try and take over a faction or like a zone as RP, like go for it, I guess.
Yeah, it's not going to be like restricted, but we are going to be like for the beginning, like be considerate.
Much like, oh, sorry. Much like being able to just leave the faction entirely after 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, you can leave your little cluster.
Well, plain and simply, there's only one zone that is going to be locked initially, and that will be Oakvale. It's going to be locked for the first 2 weeks, and then after that, it's going to be free game for everyone. Yeah, we wanted to do some a little fun with it, just spice it up.
Nazari, season will and to answer Nazari's question, season is we're aiming for about 3 months. We don't have a hard end date yet because our tentative start date is June 14th, but who knows if that'll happen. So we're aiming to go for about 3 months.
Am I good to pull the next one up?
Yes.
Sure.
Hello. I had two questions. One with like the lore and everything in those submissions. Is there any type of like, I guess the best way to ask this is like vibe or criteria you're looking for? Just because V Rising setting is very open-ended with a mixture of like 14th to 19th century stuff, and so I wasn't sure if this is like you want, if there are other kingdoms, if you want them more medieval, or if you want more, kind of what the scale is that you guys are wanting to do would be my first question.
Uh, so my vibe would be nothing beyond Gloomrot technology. If Gloomrot is the height of current technology in the world, nothing that's beyond Gloomrot. However, other than that, I I think it's fair to have a decent range that matches kind of the I don't want to say loosey goosey, but kind of loosey goosey nature
It
of
is
like the time
loosey-goosey for
frame,
sure.
the time frame shown in V Rising itself. So you can have like knights with swords, you can have people with guns, like it's fine. Like as long as we're able to make it cohesive in the end, that's what matters.
Gotcha. And then my second question was about factions, because there's kind of two different faction styles. Is either like what we had before in the preseason where they're all different factions but they're all under the same umbrella, or there's more like opposing factions. I guess I'm curious, like, what is the hope with the faction system? Like, are you wanting team A and team B to not be working together, or is it like they're different factions but all working together still?
So because the
No,
factions
go
are
ahead.
all from different places, we want there to kind of be like an air of mystery, and we are going to gently ask preseason, don't chatter with your friends about like your faction's details if they're not in the same faction, because we really want you guys to have that natural like discovery RP of like beyond the elevator pitch, beyond what you've heard down the street about that faction. We don't want you to know anything about them. We want these people to be strangers so that you can like take the opportunity to learn about them, learn what they're doing. Maybe you get recruited but out of one faction into another because their ultimate goals do end up suiting your character more. So the relationships between those factions, we want to give players the opportunity to like really have a bunch of different dynamics between the factions, especially if we have 4 of them. Like maybe they'll each ally with one, and then it'll be like a 2v2. How those factions will interact, we may give some like history of animosity between 2 of them if they seem to be at like like a great antithesis just based off of their lore preseason. But it's just too early to speak exactly how those faction relationships are going to go because we don't know what kind of factions we're going to get submitted yet.
Cool. No, that all makes sense. I was just curious. Thank you.
Alright.
Next one coming up.
No. Similar questions question for either lore character and stuff. Are there any restrictions, like specific? I think something with resources was about holy magic being a thing, or not being a thing. I mean,
Um, could you clarify your question a little bit?
yeah. Are there any specific restrictions for lore or character creation?
Well, not really beyond what's like required for the framework of the season. Like we said, we are doing low magic this season, so you can't really be anything that doesn't fit within that. Like you can't be a god or a fallen god or like divine really with low magic. You can't like secretly be like a super all-powerful eldritch horror wearing the guise of a vampire.
Why
Unless
not?
like you gotta be within low magic. And we don't allow our players to use holy magic. Just there's no way to use it in game, and that will extend to the humans as well. Humans can't use holy magic either. But yeah, as long as your character, like if you want to be like a tiny piece of an eldritch horror that fits within the lore magic system, and you have the equivalent power of the average vampire, that's fine. You can be creative with it still, but your character just has to be lore magic fitting. If we have any questions with that, you can always submit your whitelist as is, and we'll always help you workshop if we want you to tweak something so it fits the lore of the season. Just because we want to avoid power gaming.
Thank you very much.
Five hours from now.
Nazari had a great question that I do want to address really fast. The we want the factions to be player run. The tentative idea is that every faction will have 3 like representatives that work really closely with the admin team to plan the pacing of your story arc. We're undecided on whether all 3 of those will have to be players or whether we're allowed to have like one, like if staff is allowed to take up that mantle. It kind of depends. We're still talking about it. But yeah, we want them to be player run, player driven, player written. So yeah, if you again, if you have an idea for a faction, but you don't want to be the in-character leader, that's okay. You could still be one of the organizers on like the back end, like the out of character kind of like writer. But yeah.
Are we done? Okay.
Witchy asked
Yep.
about dampiers. William, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, so we had some debates in the back end about if we wanted to have vampires be like something that also had contracts and things like that. Since this is the first time we're introducing like another like full playable species, we decided to keep it simple and have just the humans and the vampires to start with. However, it's still possible to be a vampire. It'll just be handled like we did it before, where you just use all the same stuff as the vampires, but you just are a vampire and you can play that and flavor that however you would like. So you can be a vampire. We just don't have mechanics for it the same way that we have mechanics for human, since we are still testing the waters with some of this. Yeah, exactly. We had Vampire Season 0. We got vampires.
You're welcome to play Dampier. They just can't have. They're not going to be getting any innate buff codes. Like our humans will have some resistance. So like if you're playing a Dampier, they just have to be functionally the same as a Kindred. But you're welcome to flavor yourself as a Dampier if you want.
Mhm. I think we have I think that is good for this meeting. We will be having a second meeting, so if you have any lingering questions or if you think of questions like um in the interim, we will, be able to take more questions at the second Q&A after the end of meeting 2 for the people who this was too early for. So yeah. Uh, keep a hold of your questions. If even after both meetings, or if you can't make a second meeting, you still have questions, then the feedback form will be a good place for those. All right. Any last things that other folks wanna bring up?
Thanks for coming, y'all.
Yeah, man. I'm
Yeah.
gonna skedoodle. Have a lovely day, y'all. See you in the next meeting.
Shoo.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Oh, Tony, don't forget the forum. Don't forget the forum. Tell them the forum.
Tony! Tony!
What?
We talked about
I think we
We're,
feedback
we're
form.
posting the form after the second meeting just in case questions come up that we want to add.
I'm so sorry. I thought it was gonna happen after the first one.
No, it's okay. It changed during the meeting last night, and that was a long meeting, so it's okay. It's okay. No worries.
My bad, everybody. I was tired. Okay, I knew there was something. Yeah. My bad, fellas. That we
That's
should
crazy.
totally make a ping about, like right now. Let me do that.
Oh, this is crazy.
We're watching develop it.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry if I
Nerd.
was pulling people too fast up the stage, by the way.